All right. Okay, I know you all just sat down, but if you would indulge me, please stand up. We're going to play a little game. I've got a feeling that we have some pretty well-traveled people in this room. There's 195 countries in the world. Remain standing if you have been to 5 countries or more. All right. How about 10 countries or more? Yeah, that's kind of who I thought was going to be standing. We're going to jump, let's see, 20 countries? 30? 40? There we go. He's just yawning. Yeah. 50. 60. Okay, hold on. Stand back up. You 3. Well, Bruce, how many? 53. I believe 55. 55? 54. We have a winner. Good job, Peter. Yeah, that's impressive. So it's a big, wild world out there, and I certainly encourage everybody to travel as much as possible. I don't think that there is a more fulfilling, beneficial way to spend your time and your hard-earned money than going out and seeing the world. Things you buy are going to break, but those memories are going to last forever. So, and for those that have traveled around, as you try to go from country to country, what's the one thing that you need? Passport. Exactly. And the bathroom, yeah. Donde está el baño? Yeah. Yeah, and please and thank you. Just learn how to say, where's the bathroom, and please and thank you, and you'll get along. So yeah, when you go and you travel and you come in, the officials are going to examine your passport, and depending on your citizenship and your visas, they're going to either allow you entry or they're going to deny you entry, and then they give you a big stamp, that says that you're allowed to be in the country. And also when you come home, the same process happens. The immigration's officials are going to look at your passport, see if you're a citizen, see if you're allowed to come in. And usually when you go through this process, there's 2 lines. There's one for citizens, and there's one for foreigners. It's like there's a line on the right, and there's a line on the left. I think we've heard that. In Matthew, it says, all nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people from one another as a shepherd separates his sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Kind of like that. I'm not sure this is exactly what Jesus had in mind when he was preaching, but let's just kind of roll with it here for a little bit. So the core meaning of our verse here this week is really that through Christ, all believers share citizenship in God's promises in his kingdom. We, the Gentiles, are no longer strangers and foreigners. We've been granted the same promises to God's kingdom that the Jews have. We have the same opportunities and access. And so now we can stand in that right-hand line as citizens. So let me ask you this. How do you get citizenship? How does that work here? I know we've got some people that are about to go through the process, some people that probably have been through the process. What is the process to actually gain citizenship? Well, in the U.S., you're given a test. You've got to go in, you've got to demonstrate your English proficiency, which I think is sometimes a little lenient as they go through that. And then you're given a civics test. There's like 100 questions that you've got to know the answer to. You've got to know U.S. history. You've got to know our laws. You've got to know the rules. You've got to know about leadership. It's a process to demonstrate that you've studied what it means to be a U.S. citizen. And of course, the same's true for becoming a citizen of God's kingdom, right? When we present ourselves for judgment, we got to step up and demonstrate our vast biblical knowledge. And then we're going to weigh all of our good deeds and our bad deeds. We're going to step up and they're going to ask us for obscure words out of the King James. And they're going to ask us who was Boaz's second cousin on his mother's side. Right. And I think if that's the proof, we'd only have Asher over here that was going to be in the kingdom. So, no, that's not how it works. That's not it. That's the central belief of Judaism. That's Islam. That's Buddhism. That's pretty much every other major religion. You do good works, and you get rewarded. But that is not our Christian belief. God tests your heart. He tests your faith. In Paul's words, he talks about works and he talks about faith. But the point of that is that your works come from your faith. And whenever you talk about faith, very quickly, you wind up in Hebrews 11, the faith chapter. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. And of course, when you go through that, you see this long list of all these biblical celebrities. You see these epitaphs of their faithful lives, and all of those in Hebrews 11 are commended for their faith. And there are shining examples for what it actually means to have a faithful life. And then the chapter concludes, it said, all these were commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. You see, God's amazing plan is that for us, for me and for you, to be fellow citizens with all of these biblical histories or biblical heroes in Christ. They've been waiting for us to join them in that immigration line. And so when you reach that border crossing into God's kingdom, He's going to examine your faith. Faith is your passport. But this is a test that you cannot pass. None of us are perfect. We all fall short of the glory of God. And it's only by God's grace that we can enter into His kingdom. For it is by grace you've been saved through faith. And this is not from yourselves. It is a gift of God, not by works, so that no one can boast. So you see, faith is our passport. And it's only with the stamp of grace that's given by God that we can enter his kingdom as fellow citizens with the saints. Thank you.